You're listening to Filmmakers Drinking Bourbon. Hey, what's up, Internet? It's Brandon.
And this is Alex.
And Laura.
And we're filmmakers.
And we're also drinking bourbon.
All right. Let's cheers it up, gang.
Yeah.
Cheers.
All right. Let's see what we got here.
I'll tell you what it is after you taste it.
Smells nice.
It smells kind of like bourbon. Ooh, it smells different.
Yeah, it's got a different flavor. What do we got here?
It smells kind of like B vitamins.
Yeah, you brought it in. What do you got?
It's called John B. Stetson Bourbon Whiskey.
Nice.
Put
a little on your neck or your wrist for a little smell good.
Legendary hats since 1865. I have no idea what that means.
Wow.
Stetson hats?
Stetson hats.
This is
Definitely.
the same thing.
Wow. So it's from them.
Wait
From
a
him.
second. Is Stetson a brand or is it a style of hat?
I thought it was a
It's
brand.
a guy. John B. Stetson.
I mean,
We must
is it
research.
kind of like khakis? Like khakis aren't a brand, right? It's just like
No,
they're
that was
Right.
that
a
was
style of pants.
George T. Khaki.
Oh
Levi.
goodness!
This
Well,
guy-
it's good.
Yeah, he died in 1906, but he left us this tasty
All right.
beverage.
Now, is this Kentucky bourbon or is this is this out of the Kentucky genre?
I don't think it says. I mean, it's bourbon, so obviously 51% corn. You know,
Right, and it's in the United
it's
States.
from New York.
Okay, so it's a New York bourbon.
Yeah, well, John B. Stetson Spirits, they have an office in New York. I don't know if this is distilled in New York, but
So we're not sure if it's been run through the Kentucky limestone or
no. Here you go. Bottled by John B. Stetson Spirits LLC, Fairfield, California.
Oh, all right.
Yeah,
California
it's
bourbon.
Yeah.
half year old, 6 months old.
Yeah, that's the minimum, right?
Right, I think so. Yeah.
It's a baby.
Yeah. I mean, it could be half or it could be 1 to 2 years old. I don't know.
I like it.
Pretty sure it's a half.
It's fine.
Either way,
It's totally great.
it's drinkable.
It's got a little burn in the back of the throat. You guys got that?
I like it.
Yeah, it's good. So,
Oh, he has a quote, by the way.
what is it?
Please.
I think it's applicable to filmmaking. Make things right and the best they can be.
Nice. I like that. That fits this week's guest. As you may have heard, we have yet another guest on the show.
We do.
Another female voice in
can
the
tell.
filmmaking world.
Yep. And making things.
Unbelievable.
I mean, pretty applicable.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. She knows all about it. So who are you?
Yeah. Who in the world are you?
Who am I? Well, Laura Linville. I'm from Augusta, Kentucky, so I like some bourbon.
There you
go.
Thank
Nice.
you. And I've been doing this for 22 years, and I love it.
Solid.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So, in the filmmaking industry, what have you done and what do you do? What is your thing?
Well, I am a set designer, so I shop for props. I help design the look of commercials or print world, whatever I happen to be working in. And once I have usually a meeting with the director, and we come up with a look, and from there, it's gathering props, gathering images, sourcing out crazy things like bearded dragons.
We're definitely going to get into
True
that
story.
one.
Yeah. So Laura here was she was the set designer. I also want to say art director.
Art directors.
So let's just take a pause.
Is there clarification?
Let's get into some definitions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you've used different titles and people on sets think of different things. What is the proper title? What is the function? Does it matter? Educate us.
I will try to educate you from the commercial world. We wear more hats, I believe, in the commercial industry. If we are in the art department, if you're the lead, sometimes you're called the production designer or the art director. You also might be the prop master and the set dresser as well. It sort of depends on the budget. In the movies, things are a lot more categorized and departmentalized, and the lines are more clear. We tend to do it all if you're hired in the art department. We do have, depends on, again, the money, but there's a lead person, and that's my position. Hopefully I have enough of a team to do what needs to be done, but often we have set builders within our department. We have assistants, and we just make it happen with whatever we're given, usually.
Very nice.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a great jumping off point. Let's just get right into a case study.
Let's do it. Yeah.
So-
well, we talked about it before.
Yeah, we talked
always
about
do.
it. So we had a job, Lead Frame had a job for Armstrong. and they do residential ceilings, and they wanted to show those ceilings off. And so I enlisted DP over here, Alex, to be on the team from a visual standpoint.
Yep.
And we brought in Laura as our art director. And the goal, we sat down and we said, okay, here's this objective we're trying to achieve. The agency supplied the creative, and it was this idea of you can transform your room with a new ceiling. You can get rid of the popcorn textured ceiling, put in a new ceiling, and transform the room. And so that's kind of where we started. And so at that point, let's just this is all real talk. So at that point, from your perspective, art direction, you see these storyboards, you got these ideas. What are you thinking?
Well, first of all, we're trying to do 2 spots, number one, and we're trying to make use of being able to build these things ahead of time so that we can do all the shooting in one day. So we decide to use one set and convert it to work for both spots.
Right. And when she says set, this was one of the first challenges was how big is this thing going to be? Which Alex, we brought him into the fold because visually he needed to know framing with the lenses, how big the set needed to be. So
I had to talk about, we talked about, okay, how far back do we want to be? How much of the set do we want to show? What are our angles? First of all, we had to talk through the actual spots and the cuts and have our cuts lined out.
But ultimately, we were selling a ceiling.
Yes.
So we needed a real-looking room with a floor, walls, and a ceiling.
We had to be able to show it, for sure. But there is one part in the spot where you see the popcorn ceiling. And so we talked through a few different things. Do we actually make the ceiling a popcorn ceiling and then install the Armstrong? No, that takes too much time. So let's just do a fake cutaway to a separate 4x8 panel.
Right. So that's what brought up the side rig.
Yeah.
Right.
So we ended up building a small side rig where we had the textured ceiling on deck.
Yep. Well, what do you remember what dimensions we decided on for the set?
Yes, we did this by we did this when we were still in the preliminary, just in your office having the discussion.
We're winging it.
We got out a measuring tape and we basically
we use
tried
an app called Artemis,
Right.
which if for anybody out there, if you don't have this app and you're in camera, or actually if you're just in filmmaking in general, you should get it. It allows you to plug in camera, lenses, all your settings, and you can see a representation of what kind of a frame you'll get.
Right.
So.
And we needed to see how far, camera was going to need to be back far enough at some points to see the ceiling. So we ended up having to go 16 wide, which really isn't that wide. But, in set world and set pieces, when you're building walls, you build in 4x8 sections because that's what materials come in.
Yeah.
So I believe that's what we went with. Or was it 20?
I think it was 20.
It was 20.
Might be
No, it was
we
20.
ended up pushing for...
we went a little wider.
Well, we
did.
decided creatively that we were not going to have 3 walls.
Right.
We were going to have one wall, and it was going to be a lockdown shot, so you were going to be able to see the ceiling and the back wall, and the side walls weren't going to be felt.
That's correct.
So
correct?
floor, ceiling, and back wall.
That was where we went. And so that's when you said, well, if we're not going to have side walls, we got to have more wall.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's when we pushed for 20 feet of wall. And at that point, from my perspective, and this is where I want to hear a different perspective. At this point, I'm just going, great, let's make a 20-foot wall. But for your team, because your team was the one that talk about how does a team come together to build a set this big in a compressed time frame and trying to make it flippable to do 2 back to back.
Well, first of all, we did have some challenges because a lot of times we don't have to build a ceiling, number one. That was actually a big deal to have to build a ceiling. And we had to build a framework that would house Armstrong's system, which was a rail, and you might be able to describe that better.
It's,
but it's
interlocking panels.
If you think of like a nicer drop ceiling type of material that's lightweight but still has mass and it has to hold weight, and there's a rail system that goes between floor joists or ceiling joists to hold it together.
Yep.
Right.
So it has to be anchored in, and the ceiling has to be solid enough to support
But
that.
not only that, our ceiling was, remember, 20 foot
It was
by 14.
Like
at least 14,
14
I think.
deep. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it was the challenge there was I think the first question you guys asked was, how are we going to hold this thing up?
Right.
The ceiling just doesn't stay up.
Right.
That's where some grip gear came into play.
You can talk more about the grip gear.
Yeah. No, I mean, I wasn't there during it. I think this was a Neil Burns thing.
Yes.
But they ended up supporting the front edge. So the back edge of the ceiling where the wall was, connected, the front was propped up with big crank stands so that, should we need to raise, lower, move, whatever, they were rollable and,
Right.
can get out of the way quick. So
we had to do floor, and that's a lot of floor, 14 out, 20 wide. And then we had to build the walls. Building the walls wasn't a big deal, but we did talk a lot about how to turn it into 2 sets. And that was where we talked about wallpaper, paint, paneling came in to play.
When you build a wall, is it a real wall?
No, it's
is
not
it
a real
drywall?
wall.
Let's talk about that. Let's
Okay.
give some secrets of the trade away.
Okay. Well, I'm not the builder, but I do happen to know one.
Yeah.
And we use a lighter material, Luan, and it's much thinner than plywood. And it's, like I said, we built out a frame that's 4 foot by 8 foot because that's what the material comes in. And it's easily painted or papered or whatever you want. So, and then you do have to mud all the pieces together and then sand, so that it's seamless, so that it looks like a real wall.
But definitely not the kind of wall you would want to put in your house.
No.
So,
not weight bearing.
No.
What were the so there were 2 sets. What were the 2 kind of materials on the actual wall?
Well, we ended up deciding on the first set was going to be, we wanted the homes to look a little vintage or just in need of updating.
Grandma's house.
It was Grandma's house, and this guy lived in it now, and his wife wanted him to update it.
Yep.
And the ceiling did make the big difference, but we also took liberties with the props, but we still tried to use some of the same furniture. The key prop in that first set was the beautiful gold 60s sofa.
Loved it. Yeah.
I did too. And then we, just used some very colorful things and some vintage wall hangings and lamps and side tables. And then when we switched it out to make it look better, we just struck it away and made it a little more, pillows actually matched, nice rug, better lamps.
Yeah,
we had a record
it
player
became
in that one.
it became a little. So we were going from Grandma's old house to sort of a cleaned up update,
Right?
And the reason we wanted to do that was we wanted it to be realistic. These ceilings are a realistic impact on your room. So you don't have to do a complete makeover because then at that point everybody goes, oh yeah, well of course the room looks different because you gave it a makeover. What we did was we just added a few accents and gave it an update. And it felt like, oh, wow, the room has been transformed. It's still the same room, but because of the new ceiling, it feels like a really nice update. And that's where we wanted to, and that was the fine line that, me and you, Laura, that we kept pushing on that conversation. So, as we talk about this creative, let's just rewind a little bit because I loved being a part of the process. So talk a little bit about your process because you kind of go into this world of like, Pinterest and lookbooks and scrapping, and you come back to me and you're like, here's what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about how you go into that. Where do you go to look for stuff? How do you find inspiration when you're given a creative challenge for a commercial? How do you come back to present a director with, hey, here's what I'm feeling? Talk about that.
Well, first of all, we have a new wonderful tool, the internet, and it's so easy to pull imagery off of that. But you still you have to be able to search for what you're looking for and know what you're looking for. And I knew that since it was Grandma's house, it was going to probably be something mid-century looking, which is a favorite. So it was fun to start looking into all of that. We really considered wallpaper, and we were just going to build panels that we could put right on top, but then we decided let's just stick with paint so it doesn't feel like a complete makeover.
Well,
like you said.
And the other thing too, because I agree, me and you loved the wallpaper.
Yeah,
we were like, we got to have wallpaper.
We did,
but really that came back to a time issue.
It was
because when we worked with your team, which definitely let's get to who your team is in a second. We realized that you couldn't just duct tape it up.
No,
if you were going to do it, you had to do it right to sell it. correct?
That's right. And it was going to be too much of a turnover, and we were trying to shoot 2 spots in one day. So we had to shoot in the morning for one and in the afternoon for the other, and we had to at least make this 20-foot wall look like 2 different rooms.
Right.
So, but I guess quickly back to how I then proceed after we have our first discussion.
Yes.
I usually will pull a lot of imagery that I feel is what I think you're looking for.
Right.
And then I feed it back to you, and because you have to share meaning, because believe me, I've been on plenty of projects where you realize,
your vision's not
that's
their
not
vision, or vice
what they're
versa.
looking for. And that's okay. You just have to get on the same page, because my job is to execute what you want, with, of course, throwing in my ideas, and maybe they fly and maybe they don't. But I feed that back to you.
Right.
We sift through what our favorite look is. And then
And
once
that process was very much like a game of love-hate. So she was throwing stuff up on her iPad to me, and I'm like, love it, hate it, love it, hate it. So it was really fun and a cool exercise where she was able to like, okay, great, I'm eliminating one point of view and I'm verifying another.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm going to jump in here because I was also slightly part of that process
Yes.
during
Absolutely.
the pre-production thing, and we talked through.
You're always a part of the process, Alex.
I'm just saying, we talked through some
love you, buddy.
color palettes
Yes.
and some talking like TVs and just different props and how that would kind of play and all work to match the look.
Well, the biggest reason you came into the picture is because Laura introduces the idea of a window.
Which I
And
loved initially.
I'm thinking, whoa, I know what this means. Windows mean more lights, which means more money. And we already were like spending all of the money on this freaking set design.
Well, the good thing is that we were in a studio here, Midwest Grip in Cincinnati, and so we had access to all this stuff. And if we wanted to, we could simulate sunlight. So,
but I'm sitting in the room, and these two are riffing on Windows and et cetera, and I just see dollar signs just going out the door, just like, there goes all the profit margin.
We were talking about ways to add depth. If we were shooting against a single
flat wall, it was very challenging to get any depth.
Yeah.
And we're like, that's kind of plain. But
And they're like, oh no, we need 3 walls, and I'm like, oh, there goes my profit.
Yeah. Well, there was talk of shooting, kind of raking down the wall, looking, finding a third wall to get that depth. But we ended up we should start off, I guess, by saying they were kind of Wes Anderson inspired spots to begin with.
Yeah.
I mean, in all his stuff, center framed, pretty every once in a while, like shot against a flat surface,
Well, and very much symmetrical. That's one of the things that me and Laura talked about is, I mean, look, there's nothing new under the sun, people. This was the type of creative for this specific spot with our given budget, where this type of style, obviously Wes inspired, was just right. I mean, that's all there is to it. It was just the right way to go. And so that helped drive sort of the confines. But within those confines, once we knew what the set was going to be, we had rules to play by.
Right, exactly.
So with those rules, knowing there was going to be symmetry, talk a little bit about how you went from, first of all, confirming with me, and me and you were both aligned.
Right.
As far as, yes, this is the look, the before look, the after look. So at this point now, you have to literally make a room. You've got to get chairs and lamps.
Right.
So talk about that. Where do you get this stuff?
Well, I can't tell you exactly where I get it, because then I would be revealing my secrets. But honestly, we were actually creating in a way 4 rooms. Not really, but we did have 4 changes.
Before and after for each.
Before and after for each
set
one.
1 before and after, set 2 before and after. Yeah.
Right. And I actually think we did that in subtle ways, but very quick ways, and it ended up not being too terrible of a redress. But as far as places, and I have a lot of sources in town. We are Cincinnati, so we do not have prop houses. We are not LA. We are not New York. We are not Miami. We don't go to one place and get it all. So we have to go out and we have to look. You always look first in your own house and see what you have.
That's good. I like that.
You got sources,
that's a great,
is what you're saying.
That's a great, if you're listening, now's the time to take notes. Always start at home.
We happen to like some mid-century, so that was lucky for you guys.
Great.
But you can look in retail stores to find some things. We have a few places in town that will rent furniture, and we also then I reach out to thrift stores, antique places. It depends. Every single job is different.
Cool.
Because in this one we happen to be able to look for that.
Yeah. So
but not everyone is.
It sounds like what I'm hearing is, and for those who are wanting to get into art direction, that sort of thing, build your network of vendors and people. And if you know people who are into furniture and collecting, like become friends with them. And if you go to antique stores, and that's kind of what I'm hearing is really hit the pavement. And do you keep track of those? Do you have a spreadsheet?
No, I don't have a spreadsheet.
So
I should actually keep better track, but I usually just put them in my phone and I remember I tag them with
Google
something
Docs.
like, the bird lady or the bearded dragon guy.
The dragon guy, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Which worked out. Yeah, we had a bearded dragon, a giant lizard in the spot.
So here's the story. So I think, and I might be making this up, but all of a sudden we come up with all these ideas, and me and Laura are kind of riffing, and she's hilariously throwing out all these things about what's in Grandma's house. But one of the other sets was this sort of guy in the den of his basement, and his character was more of like a kung fu enthusiast, black action hero type of thing. And we started like just riffing on some ideas, and she's like, well, what about like an alligator, like sculpture or whatever, those sorts of things. And I'm like, yeah, absolutly. And
Komodo dragon.
So
we wanted an iguana.
Yeah.
Didn't we really want? We wanted an iguana first.
Yes. Well, yes, I think you're right. We talked about
giant
something.
Lizard, basically.
Yes, and we were like, we need
a reptile.
Yeah, we need a reptile. That's basically what it was.
We
were like
kung fu. Yeah.
And then you said something, and then I was like, yes. I was like, no, we need a real iguana or something. And you were like, I remember because you said something. You were like, all right. And I was like, oh my gosh,
she's going to
like this might happen. And then all of a sudden I get a text from Laura like a couple days later, and she's like, I've got an iguana guy.
It was great because she showed up with her iPad full of photos. Like,
yes,
here are the options.
Not only did she find a bearded dragon guy, we had
a breeder.
Options.
This one's pinky. This one's orange. This one's
he had 30.
Lucy.
It was like a casting. It was literally a casting for iguanas.
Bearded dragon casting.
It was awesome.
It was fantastic.
I just happened to hit the jackpot. I went into a pet store and I went actually looking for iguanas or some sort of reptile.
Exotic creature.
And the lady said, "Oh, we have a guy here. He has bearded dragons at home. He breeds them." At one point, he lived in New York and had 60 bearded dragons in his home. Can you imagine sleeping in that house?
I don't even know, dude.
No, I can't.
Crazy.
But now you've got this guy in your back pocket.
Yeah.
Who sets your shoes?
And he was like the nicest guy.
He was super sweet.
And the dragon was super sweet.
What was his name again?
I forget, but it was amazing.
I forget. But I do have to throw out that our PA on set like flipped and turned into the bearded dragon handler, Robert Simpson. Yeah.
He loved that dragon.
Dude, that thing sat on his shoulder. He would like feed it.
It broke his heart when he had to leave.
He
was the only one that could tame it.
Very sweet dragon.
Yes.
Very sweet.
So let's on that point, how often in your position are you requested to find really bizarre stuff like that?
Often. And I always am so excited about the hunt. I just can't tell you, the weirder the item, the better for me. It's like a treasure hunt or a scavenger hunt. And you make so many calls to get to the right place. This is a job that I just worked on recently, and I needed a wrestling ring. So I start calling a real professional wrestling ring.
Like a functional?
A functional one that had to be built in Midwest. And I needed, wrestlers were going to be on this. So it had to be a real one. Wow. We weren't going to build it. So I start calling around, and it has to be one that's it can travel and portable. Yeah. It's like,
sure.
Okay, yeah, no problem. So I start calling, and I call a place in North Carolina. There are all these different places, and I somehow.
This is amazing.
Well, here's the thing. This guy says, "You know what? I'm going to give you the number of this guy who maybe he remembers somebody in your area." So that guy emails me back and says, "There's a woman that I sold some kind of wrestling ropes to. This is her name. She lives in Dayton. Yeah. Isn't that near you?"
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of near me. So I call this lady. She works at Wright State, and she's at her regular job, and she's not there, but she calls me back. I like all these weird people. They call me back, or I'm the weird one.
What was your voice message when you called? You're like, "Hey, what's up?
Looking for
I hear you got a wrestling ring."
Right. Yeah. I just say, "Well, this is what I'm looking for, and perhaps you know someone." And she was kind enough to call me back. and she said, "Here's the name of someone. He owns Rockstar Pro Wrestling in Dayton, and
Wow.
so
Amazing.
he calls me back too."
It's like a friend of a friend of a,
Oh, yeah.
a contact
No,
of a friend
I
of a
had to-
possibility of a dude,
Exactly.
of a guy, of
Yeah.
a girl.
I have to get online, call North Carolina to get a woman in Dayton for
And there's
another
a guy,
guy
yeah.
in Dayton, and then he actually ended up really and truly bringing me. We rented
so
it, and he
good.
brought it, and he brought a team to set it up, and
That's
it was
amazing.
great.
Wow.
Yeah.
Don't you feel a lot of times?
Wow.
I feel like this a lot of times in production, that if you just put it out there, the universe aligns for you.
Yes, I had to sweat it out a little bit, but yes, because I have to deal with people that are not in production. And this guy doesn't understand how badly I need this because I'm going to have 50 people there that day. And if I don't have something for
Yeah.
the wrestlers to be standing on, then
You're
what are we
screwed.
going to do?
Well, and typically with production, there's never enough time.
Well, you have 5 days
Yeah.
to make
Yeah.
this
You're,
happen.
you're
Hey,
notified like
so you get
not
the you get the
enough.
creative brief, and you're like, oh, here's the spot, and it says all this stuff, and it's like wrestling ring, and meanwhile you're thinking in your head, oh my gosh, I need to get a wrestling ring, and they're probably just going, oh yeah, and the creative's gonna be this and that, like they have no clue what it takes for you to get the wrestling
Right.
ring, and then they're like, oh, we need to shoot in like 5 days, and you're like,
Which is insane.
Right.
It's always like
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Well, you know what? This is very typical of what I have to do. We need a lot of lead time to track down certain items. I wasn't even supposed to start on that job until I'll say a Friday, a week after I actually started on it, because I got the information and I know how long it takes to make something happen. And so I knew I had to start the process in order for all these people to call me back.
Yeah.
And it did end up taking that long, and I still didn't have a lockdown on it until Sunday, and we shot on that Wednesday.
Whoa.
So I was sweating it, but like you said, Brandon, I felt good, like it was going to happen.
yeah.
And I did have I found a backup. It wasn't the right color, but I
Sure.
had even
Coulda
found a
worked.
backup ring, which was
Man.
remarkable.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
It's all about
so
the connections.
But yeah, so for me, I love that every job is different. I love that every job you're looking for new things, and it's just fun. But you do start to make sources and friends in the city that you live in, and you take care of them too. You treat
Yeah.
their property with respect. If you damage it, you pay for it.
Sure.
We're not a Hollywood company coming into town for 6 weeks.
yeah.
And
These are your
we don't
sources for life,
abuse-
pretty much. you
Yeah.
know?
They're my career. So
That's
Lose
really
that,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah. And so would it be safe to say that you, in many ways, have got a guy?
you mean for everything?
Yeah, you're one of those people where if you're at a party or you're at the bar or wherever, and somebody's like, "Yeah, this thing, I'm really looking for this," and you're kind of like, "I got somebody for that."
Like a
this
Mr.
point.
Fix It.
Yeah.
Nice.
If not, you make one quickly.
Yeah.
Like I've never had a wrestling ring contact until now.
Now you got one.
I never had a bearded dragon contact until, and now I have a bird lady contact, which has nothing to do with a
I got
job.
a bird. I've got a bird lady too.
You do?
In Miami. So
Carnival
if you ever do
spots.
anything in Miami, I got a bird
Okay,
lady.
all right.
Homing
Homing pigeons.
Oh, I
Let's
did
be
do
clear.
homing pigeons
Yeah.
once. I would like to tell this story if
for
we
it.
have time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
So
the time
we were
limit?
doing another job. This was several years ago. I was working with Rob Gray, who was another production designer in town. He's not actually freelancing right at the moment, but we were doing a job and we needed to have a pigeon sit on George Washington's head. I think it was a lottery spot, and the pigeon had to flap its wings. And we're like,
Makes total sense.
sure it does, right? So we're like, okay, is it going to be a model of some sort? Well, we tried to, we didn't have the money to have one made, of course.
Yep.
Like an animatronic.
Animatronic
Yeah.
wasn't going to happen. Didn't have the budget.
Stuffed animal
We
probably
looked
looked
at
too
stuffed
cheap.
animals. They looked terrible.
Yeah.
We shopped all of that. And finally, we're like, we're going to have to use a real pigeon. We're just going to have to use a real pigeon. We find a guy up in, I think, Dayton again. It must be a Mecca up there.
Yeah.
And it was homing pigeons. Like he
That's right.
actually had homing pigeons. And the day came and he brought 30 pigeons.
Whoa.
And they did all their business. They would fly in and he'd somehow made them come back to him. And we all had to sort of wrangle them a little bit.
Nice.
But my favorite part was when it came time to put the pigeon in George's hair. He was wearing a wig, but
Yeah.
the actor was wearing a wig who was playing George Washington.
Not George. He couldn't make
He
it.
couldn't make it. So
Occupied.
we're like, well, what if this bird poops in George's wig? He still has a lot of shots to do.
That's
And
amazing. Yeah.
so the guy who brought the pigeons, he's like, well, we could probably just like put some tape on his butt. And we put gaff tape on this. Yes.
You blocked the bird's
I swear.
butthole.
We did. And I'm like,
amazing.
okay, so, but this guy owned them. It was
Yeah.
his
He
idea.
said that was okay.
And he said it was okay. We used gaff tape, just
Yeah.
a small bit.
And none of us in the room
Wow.
approve of animal abuse.
Of course
No,
not.
that's not abuse, though.
No, I'm just saying in general.
No,
Let's just-
absolutely, yeah.
Disclaimer.
Putting that out there.
Right.
Alex's wife is
My
a
wife's
veterinarian.
a vet. Yeah, we love animals.
But anyway,
Yeah.
No.
Anyway, gaff tape on
That's
a bird's
amazing.
butt. To
That's what
stop
we
it
did.
from pooping in the
can I get some gaff? We've got a Aryan anal situation.
avian?
Avian.
Aryan. It's not a
Ariel.
white master bird. I mean,
Ariel. Like, oh, geez. That's hilarious.
So that's a true story.
That's amazing.
that is
Yeah.
awesome. So did you have to like tape its feet down so it wouldn't fly away, or did it stay on the head?
Somehow, I don't remember doing anything like that. I guess we were able to keep the bird still long enough for the shot. And
That's
then,
amazing.
we wanted him to flap his wings. So we were able to get him to be there just long enough. And then he, of course, wanted to take off. So.
Yeah.
Huh.
That's
awesome.
amazing.
Yeah.
The
Was
things
the
we
guy,
did-
was the bird guy Forrest Whitaker from Ghost Dog?
It was not.
Have you guys seen that
for-
film?
I've never
That was
seen
like,
it.
No, I
oh
haven't.
man, he's a samurai. He's an urban samurai.
Ghost Dog. That's
Who-
recent.
Well, like
2008.
10, it's
Yeah.
older. But he's
I know.
all the music was done by the RZA from Wu-Tang.
Yeah.
And he is a samurai. He studies the samurai way.
Is that where
but
he has like
keeps-
dreadlocks?
No, he usually has a hat on or a hood, and he keeps pigeons on the roof. And it's one of the best films Forrest Whitaker's ever done.
Wow. Okay. There's
watch
a
it.
recommendation.
Ghost
Go
Dog.
watch it. So,
All right.
okay, so far what we've learned about your world is you do weird things. You know lots of crazy people with interesting things for props and locations and furniture and stuff. You have to think on your feet. You've got to source content. You have to build stuff. So let's talk about the building. How you obviously can't do it on your own.
No.
So what does your team look like? Let's go back to that Armstrong spot we did with the ceiling. How do you build a 20-foot room in an allotted time frame? How do you tear it down? How do you? That was something I didn't think about, and I was kind of
Right.
like, oh my gosh. And how does that happen?
Well, first of all, you have to hire your lead carpenter, your lead builder. And Duke Smith did this job. He had an assistant, Steve Siedentoff. I'm trying to remember how many days we gave to the build, but I would guess at least 3 or 4.
was-
Yeah.
It's 4.
Yeah.
Something like
and
that.
it's sometimes it's literally they're building out the frame for each 4x8 section, and we needed 5 of them. And they also had to install the ceiling, but they first built the walls, mudded them.
Yep.
I might be wrong on the process exactly. Duke could answer better. But then we picked a paint because we were shooting the painted wall set first. So
And then we had the side prop for the dirty ceiling,
right,
which was
we had
a different
to do,
thing.
and that
And
was
then
You
we
had to
had
stain.
and then we had
Yeah.
the kick wall.
right.
So
well,
that's something we didn't explain.
we actually
Yeah.
didn't explain our second
Yeah.
set. The second set,
Yeah.
we decided to turn that into the den, like the basement den.
Kung fu enthusiast.
Right. And so we decided to be able to make it feel like a completely different spot, that paneling would be our
Paneling.
friend.
And it also helped in the speed aspect, I think, if I remember correctly, because
That's
you're like, we
right.
can just plop the paneling
That's right.
over top of
Yes.
the previous set.
Right.
And not only that,
Versus
but we all knew
re-wallpapering.
that paneling is thin, and we knew it would break easily if we scored it to get a pattern of like a kapow or a
right.
kick out.
Kick
because
through,
in
yeah.
the second spot,
Yeah.
the guy kicks the wall, and that also we had to do a bump out on that. We didn't just kick it wasn't just a flat wall on the second set. We had a bump out,
Yep.
which was pre-built and then installed, and so it looked like there was just a small return, which gave us the opportunity for the actor to be able to kick it. So we had to keep replacing that panel with I think we had done, I don't know, 7
Yeah.
walls that we had pre-scored, and did we put insulation behind
Yep.
it too to
Yes,
make
we
it feel
did.
like a
Pink
real
we did.
wall?
Insulation.
And so,
Yeah.
for the listener, the context here is the whole point of the campaign was this idea that if you could, it was called the Cover Up campaign. So the Kung Fu enthusiast is in the den. He's doing his Kung Fu. He kicks a hole in the wall. He realizes, uh-oh. Then he has a moment where he covers the wall with a painting, which happened to be an amazing Velvet Panther painting, which is in our studio right now as sort of a trophy from the set. Thank you for that. It's amazing.
You're welcome.
It sits by our bourbon cart, and it's so perfect. And so the idea was, if you can easily cover up with sort of the male genius of like, I don't need to fix the hole in the wall. I just need to cover it up with a painting. Then he has an epiphany. Oh, I don't have to go through and scrape the popcorn ceiling. I can just cover it up with this great product made to cover things up. That was the creative, and so that's why we had to do that.
That's why we did the kick in the wall. But that was a big deal for us to figure out, like, as a team, how did we want it to look? Because it no longer completely looked like the Wes Anderson symmetrical thing, but we just shifted our
just
shot
enough.
a little bit that we were able to cheat that. And that was a wonderful set. I actually loved that set.
That was fun. And the key to that, though, is we didn't know, like, could we get the kick in one take? So we had to be prepared to move.
She said we built 7.
We had to be prepared to move quickly to swap it out. I think we lucked out and we were able to do it in like 2 or 3. But
it was great. I mean, all they had to do was pop off the corner retainers, pull off the front panel, replace the front panel, put the corners back on, and slide the wall back into place. I think each time it took like 5 minutes to reset.
Well, we had really thought it through on how to do it, and I think that Duke had a lot of input on. Yes. Okay, how do we? What material can we use that we can do this quickly? Because Luan probably wasn't going to be it.
Right.
And then how do we paint, and how do we have all this stuff? I mean, we could have pre-painted all these walls, but the paneling was a great idea for it.
It was clutch.
Yeah. And it was something that looked kind of dated, which was what we wanted, and we ended up making it look great with the new ceiling. We used some cool furniture, this really great credenza. Right. That I actually ended up buying because I loved it so much.
The gong.
The
gong
head
was amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we had 3. Let's just call it 3 days of build, and once it was built, we had. Let's talk through this. Did we have a full day of set dress, or was it kind of a half day?
Did we do a pre-light?
There was no pre-light.
It wasn't a pre-light, but we did kind of get in there a little bit.
Well,
that was just on the last day of the build.
Yeah.
I came in.
Yeah, I think we were dressing immediately as soon as they finished the build.
We squeezed it in.
As soon as they did
so we were not, for the listener, we had a nice budget. It was decent, but it was not extravagant by any means. It wasn't like we had a full day of pre-light and a full day just to play around. We still had to hit some numbers. And so that's what I loved about Laura. She respected our budget and said, okay, we'll find a way to make it work. And so we kind of just hustled it and we got it done. But we weren't chinsing. It wasn't, cutting corners, but we had to find ways to just do it more efficient.
Work within the constraints.
You have to work in the constraints, and you have to be realistic. And I feel like I have been doing it long enough that now I know how long it's going to take to do something. So I'm able to tell you how long it's going to take to do the build or to do the shopping, and so you just sort of start backing yourself out of it from your shoot day as to what you need, and it ended up working out.
This is one of those projects where we can go back to how important pre-production really is.
Absolutely.
If we didn't spend the time doing the picking out the props, doing the finding the drag and doing all this stuff beforehand, we would have been screwed.
Right. And I think too, the communication's a big thing. I mean, throughout the whole process, I was getting text left and right from Laura, hey, what do you think? And she texted me like pictures of like robes and props and lamps because, we didn't have the budget in this one to just buy everything. So we had to be efficient. And so one of those ways was, okay, well, I'm out looking, so I'm just going to snap you pictures, make a decision. We're going to be efficient. Instead of buying 8 things that we may or may not be able to return, we're going to buy just the one, and we're going to have to make the decision now.
Right. And I loved that you were very reactive to everything I sent, and I got a quick response. I don't always get that, so thank you.
I'm a texter.
Well, the beauty of a cell phone or iPads now, it's just, I don't even know how we used to do our job. We took Polaroids.
Yeah, I bet.
And took it back to our leader and would ask what we had to do.
The time in between, so
So let me ask you this, 'cause I know in Alex's world, he gets asked to shoot stuff that some of it is like, hey, here's a 7D. Some of it is, hey, you can build an Alexa package. Is there that big of a spectrum in your world where, are you brought in on smaller budgets, or typically it has to be a good enough budget to merit your position? Talk about it.
Well, I mean, I have a day rate like everyone, and it mostly just it's how if I can look at a project and say, you don't have the money to do this, you just don't, or it's a job I really want to do. Like I've done plenty of movies. If it's for a friend, then you do the project. But commercially, I think you have to be fair to other people that are doing what we all do for a living, and you have to stay true to what you do and keep to your rate for jobs that are, in the commercial world, I guess I'll say.
So let's step outside of this case study we've been talking about. So not everything you do is building a 20-foot set.
Right.
Sometimes you have a wrestling ring. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, maybe sometimes you're in a house and really you're there to just sort of make what's there look better.
Definitely.
Give us some of those examples.
Sure.
Give us like a small example of like, here's like a tiny thing, simple, not a ton of build, and then maybe blow it out even further.
Well, we definitely go into homes very often, and we have to either work with the furniture they have, or there have been times when we go into a home and we unload what they have into an empty truck. We bring in what we've brought. We always have to do a rental truck, almost always, with most jobs. Depends on how much you have to move, but we are movers. That's what we do. So we go in and we redress the home. We always, take pictures of how the home is before we go in there. We always redress it back, but, or sometimes it might just be, we're going to live with this furniture. Now we just want you to bring in some color. So we'll bring in new pillows. We'll bring in new curtains. We'll bring in throws. Artwork. Artwork is a big deal in our world because you can't use artwork that doesn't have clearance. So you can't just go to Bed Bath & Beyond or Target and buy artwork off the shelf and expect to use it.
I didn't know that.
You'd have to pay for the rights to use it.
And you have to get a release form signed.
Huh, interesting.
So normally that's another thing. I like to have a handful of sources to be able to, go to them and say, I need this, I need that. And then you get it printed out, or it's artwork that's already done.
I've got somebody you need to meet.
Great. See, another good source.
Yeah. So I've got somebody who they license tons of artwork to places like Bed Bath & Beyond.
That would be a good source.
Home, or no, what's the one where, not to be political, but the place where they...
Pier 1?
No, the place where you can't have birth control.
Hobby Lobby?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There you go. Yeah.
Hobby Lobby. They source things to those places.
Right.
And they own all of the copyrights.
That's fabulous.
So
don't say his name.
We'll talk.
Just give it to me.
We'll talk after offline.
You're the one.
We'll talk
You've been
offline.
chosen.
Yeah, you need to know this.
No,
person.
that would be
Huge.
great because
That's awesome.
there's always artwork because that's real. People have artwork in their home, and so
okay. So you're dressing up houses that are existing. You've built a wrestling ring. What's something else that you might do on a soundstage that's not as big as a wrestling ring or a 20-foot room?
Well, when I first got in the business, which was over 20 years ago now, I came in, and Redna, which was a part of Procter & Gamble at the time, they did all the test commercials for all their products. So we were doing a lot of demonstration type work, which would be toilet paper, side-by-sides.
I don't want to see the demo for that one.
I know. Yeah. There are stories I've heard, not that I was involved in. But we would do things like you would literally trim the perf lines. You would trim that so it was clean and get stacks and stacks of individual sheets of toilet paper. We would sort through Doritos and find the perfect shaped Dorito and toss out the bad ones.
This is
Pringles
amazing.
The same way. Any Bounty, we would measure out. It was very scientific when you would do a liquid drop. It was fun. It's like there are all sorts of different types of things you do when you're in the art department. And I've been lucky enough to work on a lot of different things in this town. So that was always, we did a lot of things with Bounty, Tide, we did grass
Home
stains.
goods,
We would do grass stains in shirts. We had to use special grass stain. Oh, I do remember a Swiffer job where we needed lint. and because we were picking it up off the floor, and they wanted pink, and so we didn't have pink lint. So we had to send someone to homes in the neighborhood to knock on the door and say, "Do you mind looking in your dryer and seeing if you have any pink lint?"
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah. And I think someone found it. I mean,
amazing.
crazy little things like
That's so
that we'd have to
Yeah.
do.
Well, talking about a crazy thing, one of the things, going back to our case study with the Armstrong thing we did, was on our textured popcorn ceiling, we needed a stain.
Right.
So walk us through your approach to that, because you had like a strategy.
I did. And my first thought,
So how
is...
do we make this ceiling look really nasty?
Right. Well, we needed to make it look like a water stain. So immediately, coffee is usually a really good staining thing. So I think we used coffee, but we also maybe added a little... maybe just some actual dark stain. But we just fooled around with it, and we just start painting and dab it on and test it and see how it looks. And you were pretty satisfied with what we did.
You brought out like a weapon. Like it was like
what did I use?
Your tool. You had some sort of heat gun.
Oh, yeah. We were trying it with the heat gun.
Brought out
you burned, kind of singed the edges.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
Yeah.
Thank you. See, I forgot we did that.
So it was this great. I loved it because I'm like, I don't get to do that all the time, and so it was fun to like kind of watch you guys, because you guys have all these like. You had like all these tools on set, and like you're just like, oh yeah, give me that thing, and you're like heating it and you're crisping it, and it's really funny and to be on set sometimes, and like we had like at least 3 or 4 people sitting around like talking about, was it enough crisp? Did it need more crisp? Was the stain too over the top? Was it in like?
Yeah.
It's so funny that like we sometimes get so in depth on the silliest things, but
dude, it's crazy.
But they pay off in the end.
That's a small one. Like when we do wait till we do a food job.
Oh yeah.
Like, and then you have the agency person that is in charge of the cucumber.
Oh well, we did
selling.
I produced a food shoot with Larry over at Riverside, and I mean, I swear
it's nuts.
We took 20 minutes about where the specific peppercorn was going to be placed.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
It's very specific.
Yeah.
They look really good, but it was like, come on, guys, we got to ship.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I've heard stories about bean counters and bean sorters for, Bush's beans. It's quite a process.
Yeah. But it all pays off. It's all about the end product.
Yeah. So that's awesome, man. Cool. So what are the things, how have you seen this industry? So you've been doing it for a while now. What have you seen in the industry? How has it changed? Are you getting called on the same jobs? Are those jobs budgets getting bigger? Are they getting smaller? Talk about it.
Well, number one, budgets are definitely smaller than they used to be. As I mentioned, I did start out working a lot on P&G products where we had very good budgets. I came in I worked as a production assistant for the first few years when I came in. So I had to decide, when you come in as a PA, you're doing anything from picking up talent at the hotel to running the film to the airport to Delta Dash at the end of the night, which we don't do anymore, but
you get to see the whole
You get to see
spectrum,
everything.
Yeah.
And I got to see
pick your
every
path.
department. Yep. And I knew I wanted to do art, and I ended up being able to work under some great people that are all still in this town. Judy Davis, Mary Seguin, Nancy Gilmore, Sarah Young, Rob Gray. I hope I'm not missing people, but I trained under some really great people. And, it's an apprenticing job. You learn under other people. You see what happens in the business. It's not something you can learn in school. I did my internship at the Cincinnati Film Commission, but I still had no idea what it really was.
Did you go to school for anything related to art or filmmaking?
Not really. I went to NKU, and I have a degree in journalism, and I have a minor in radio TV.
So communications,
Right.
Yeah.
So radio TV, I did. That's why I ended up doing my internship at the Film Commission, which was Kristen wasn't there then, but Lori Holiday was there.
Which is funny you say radio and TV, because we found out that she used to be a radio DJ.
She was a DJ.
Who, Kristen?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
She did the weather and the traffic report.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
cool.
That's funny. So Kristen, we're talking about, she's on the Cincinnati at Sundance episode, which is like episode 33.
Yeah, if you listen to this one, it's
out.
like 2 episodes prior.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that's interesting. So
So you apprentice, you learn under all these people.
I did, and I knew, eventually you work as an assistant long enough under someone, and then lo and behold, one day someone asks you to be the lead.
Bump you up.
And so you do, and
somebody else asks
and you crush it, obviously.
I don't remember if I crushed it.
Do you remember what your first job was? Or one of the biggest ones where you were the lead?
I do. Yeah. It was an Olay spot, and it was with a director, Adam Santelli.
Well, as in oil of Olay, or like that?
Yes, it is.
Or the Olay, wasn't that like a chip, like a fat oil chip thing?
What?
No, it's
Olay. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I do. That it's an ingredient.
It's like
that
a
goes
supplement instead of butter or fat. It's like Olay, but it gave everybody diarrhea.
OLE with the whatever accent.
Yeah.
Olay.
Olay. No, Olay is oil of Olay, but they dropped oil of several years back because it was a negative sounding
lotion,
thing.
Right?
Sure.
It's a beauty cream.
Beauty cream.
Many. I mean, they have cleansers.
It defies aging.
Exactly. It defies aging.
Done.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was your first.
That was my first
big one.
It was my first big one, and it was a huge build.
Yeah.
And it was when we did have really decent budgets, and it was fun. It was very stressful. It's a very stressful position, because
it's money on the line.
It's money on the line. It's very condensed in the time world. You have, our projects are never any longer than 2 weeks. They're usually shorter than that, and you have a lot to accomplish in a time frame. But it is how we operate, and that's how we've been trained to operate. So it can happen, and that's kind of our theme. We know that we can make anything happen with the right amount of time and money.
Sure,
it's just you can.
And part of you, I would assume, is part psychologist, because every director and company you work with is different. So you got to kind of in a short time figure out how they work in order to cut through the mud, right?
Yeah, because you don't have time for any kind of bullshit. You just don't. You just have to, like I said, share meaning, figure out what they want, make it happen.
Yep.
And all along the path, I like to make sure that everybody's communicating, and I always communicate with my producer and my director and make sure that they're both on the same page and know what's going on. And that way you can keep moving forward and you don't have any questions.
Exactly. I feel like that's applicable to pretty much every position and department in the film industry.
Yeah.
Just be straightforward and get it done.
This is great. These podcasts have been amazing.
They are. I mean,
we
we're
get
learning
these
a lot.
amazing talent that are coming in here and just giving away all their secrets.
I have a question. So since we're starting about that's the bourbon kicking in. We're talking about starting out in the film industry, specifically in the art department. For someone out there who's looking, maybe they know they're a PA now and they know that they want to go into the art department. Any words of advice, ways to go?
If you're in the art department, you're never going to sit down on set. That's the number one thing. You're always moving. I would encourage anyone who's interested in art department to just walk up to the people. If you're a PA, and I've seen it, people either get it or they don't, and it's almost automatic. They either understand how to anticipate, but just pay attention when you're on a set and kind of see what you like or what you think you might like, and then give it a shot and just put it out there and say, hey, I'm interested in art department. And that way okay, I remember that girl said she might be interested. Maybe she could work as an art PA. And, art department it's fun. It's a lot of fun, but it's very physical, and we unload trucks and then we load them back up at the end of the day.
You guys are always going.
Yeah.
Are there any specific skills you think that somebody in the art department should have, like building something or making something?
If you're a set builder, you obviously better know how to be a carpenter. I mean, you have to know some basic carpentry skills to do that. But as far as other things, it's
like,
great if you can have a good eye,
or interior decorating or stuff like that.
Sure, I guess it's always good to know styles. I mean, I feel like I don't even always know all the terminology of what that is, but if you can describe it, I feel like I can usually get it. But I don't know if I guess I don't want to discourage people from going to film school. I'm sure you can learn a lot in film school, but I would say work on any project that you can, because you'll learn.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Do the freebies and see what you like.
Yeah.
And I can tell you right now, you're either going to like it the very first time you work on it, or you're not. Or you're not. I mean, I remember the very first job I ever worked on, I was at the Film Commission, and S.B. Weathersby, he's an assistant director in the city, And he was on it, and he must have reached out to the film commission and said, I need a couple of PAs. I didn't know what that was. I had no idea what in the world film production assistant was. And I had been in the restaurant business for 8 years and had worked at some nice restaurants. And, I was like, all right, he said, can you go pick up some bagels and some cream cheese? I'm like, yeah, I guess I can go do that. I can go pick up some cream cheese. So I get the bagels and the cream cheese and I go to set, not knowing what to expect. This is a home shopping network show, and there's tons of people, tons of equipment. I mean, imagine the first time you walk on a set.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And it's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've never seen anything like it. And, I'm in charge of putting this food on the table. I did craft service for probably another year after that, but I had no idea what it was.
Wow.
And I remember, this is a true story too. I was on, Bernie Dortman was the DP. And
Interesting. At Midwest.
yeah, he is one of the owners at Midwest.
That's
he
awesome.
was the DP on the job. SB was
I'm going to call
assistant
Bernie.
director.
I'm calling Bernie. Hey, Bernie.
Replace me with Bernie. Yeah.
I need a DP.
Oh, he could do it.
Do it. I'm sure he's great.
So Bernie is on set, and I think it might be our second day that I've been there. I'm like, okay, this is really kind of weird. And I had all these people kept asking me to do things. So I had a notepad that I would write stuff down because I'm like, I can't remember all the stuff they keep asking me. So this other kid that had been at the film commission with me is there, and Bernie's like, I need a half apple. The kid that I'm working, it's a true story.
I know exactly.
I know because it's a story you've heard, but I swear to God, it's my first job and it's
I'm
true.
laughing externally, but you please finish.
So this boy that I had been working with, I can't remember his name, and he's not in the business anymore. He left set without anyone knowing, and he went to the grocery and he got an apple, and
Like an edible fruit apple.
He got
an
a
edible
real
fruit apple.
apple.
And he came to set and he cut it in half and he walked up to Bernie, and it had to have been a 30-minute, maybe later.
Yeah.
He's like, here's your half apple. If you need the other half, it's over on the counter.
What? I wanted to see the look on Bernie's face.
I don't think he said anything.
Wow. So for everyone else out there,
This is the
an
most
apple,
amazing story I've ever heard.
So an apple is typically on a film set referring to an apple box, which is a piece of wood used to elevate items on the set. Not a
And they come in different sizes.
Yeah, they come in-
full apple,
yeah.
a half apple,
Or
a quarter.
Well, and then you
Pancake.
get into other varieties, pancake.
Yeah.
Right.
And then some people start. You got cities that connect to the boxes.
Right.
I
Based
feel
on
so
height.
glad that he asked for a half apple and not
Yeah.
a pancake.
Oh my God,
Because if that
that's
kid went
amazing.
home and made a pancake and brought it back,
So
that's
here's
amazing.
here's a takeaway. If you're gonna be on set, get on the internet, Google film terms.
know the terminology,
And at least
Yeah.
have an idea of, hey, there's other than that, there's some ones that are also probably offensive and crude.
Yeah.
And just realize
those
that
are-
no one's trying to offend
Those won't be in the textbooks, Brandon.
you. Yeah, exactly.
That is hilarious, though.
Yeah.
A half apple.
And of course, for me at the time, it meant nothing. And
Yeah.
over the years, I've heard SB tell this story, and
Yeah.
it's a true story.
I always
was there when it
thought that was
happened.
like a myth.
It's not
or
a myth.
legend of some
It's
kid.
not.
Yeah.
It is a true story.
Wow. A half
Man.
apple.
Mm-hmm.
Wow,
That's hilarious.
This has been so great. So, will you come back on the show?
Sure.
So, because I feel like we've had so many great people, but like
Yeah.
you guys are you're what make this industry and this community come alive. You guys got so many stories.
Yeah.
So,
Well, this is one
yeah, we
specific,
gotta
the
keep
art
this
department.
going.
I'm just saying, like,
There are lots of
in terms of-
departments you could talk to.
yeah, but in terms of crazy stories and things, like
Sure.
this is something. The next time we talk to you, you'll have some other story about.
Yeah.
I needed to find a cobra or something.
Right.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, I don't know if I want. They're poisonous, right?
Like a defanged cobra.
Okay.
So you'll call the bearded dragon guy, and he'll recommend
Yeah.
his buddy Gutierrez. And,
Well,
you know.
here's the thing, we've got a little bit more time, but I want to find out because this is always, we've got a couple questions on the show, and this is what people really dig this. What are you watching right now? What's inspiring you? Do you have time to like get into some films or shows, or what are you hip to? What do we need to know about?
Well,
what's up?
I'm a little behind actually on a couple of things, but I will tell you what I am into watching. What isn't old that I just saw, The Revenant, was outstanding.
Wow,
outstanding.
Yep.
Loved it. And then is a Mad Men. I'm still finishing up 6 and 7.
I gotta watch it. It's been in my queue. I tried it and
I
it
love
didn't
it.
click for me. And then
I love it, man.
Well, I know, but I'm saying I tried it and I just couldn't get it. And then you came back recently and were like, "Oh my god, I watched it. It's awesome. I gotta watch it." And then now now I gotta watch
Yeah.
it.
You
It's
have
right
to.
up your bourbon drinking.
It's fantastic.
I mean, you
They
watch
just-
it and makes you want to drink bourbon.
Great.
Really,
I mean,
seriously.
they
Okay.
drink in the morning there.
So, but from your perspective, I can see why
Oh,
you
the
love
sets
it
are-
because the whole thing is
Right?
just
Yeah.
like take us back to 1970,
60.
60.
No, the
reading
60s.
some article about how they were encouraged to leave the sets scuffed and dirtied or dirty them up as it progressed throughout the office,
Right.
as they stayed there. So they'd be walking by and the art director would go into the office and they'd see a scuff on the door and be like, "Oh wait, did we do that or was that grip? Should we
Right,
clean that?"
right.
And then they have to refer back to stills and see,
Yeah.
no, okay, we did do that.
Well, and those are things that are interesting that, like, from the DP's point of view, like,
Yeah.
there are times when some people, they want a spotless window. And then there are other times you start to clean a window and people will freak out. The DP will be
Yeah.
like, "Duh."
Yeah.
It's like, did you see the girl with the pearl earring? Did you see the movie?
Didn't see
I didn't
that.
see
Okay,
that.
well, it's a Vermeer painting. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
the
yeah.
artist, but the big deal is that his windows had this grime for years and years, and then someone cleaned the windows, and so new light came in. So there's a transition in his art.
Oh,
I don't know
wow.
how true that is, but
Sure.
Wow,
the
because he
transit
painted
because the light
things
was
realistically.
different.
But
Yeah.
it sounds great. It's a
Yeah,
great story.
well, it is. It sounds great, but it's basically, what you
Interesting.
do, the lighting. To me, I like talking to the DP about,
Yeah.
because we're dealing with lamps, we're dealing with,
Yeah.
light is like, that's the next best thing for me.
Yeah,
According to
well,
Brandon,
light
I
is
just,
the thing.
All I
It
do
is.
is push buttons, according to Brandon.
That is
Wow.
true. That's all you do.
On
and
and
talk
off.
about nerdy stuff.
Recording.
Hit the red
is
one.
this the 3294? Great, thanks. Appreciate that.
Hit the red one to go. Yeah.
That is not true. You are a sculptor of light. I am the light.
God,
No.
we have to post that video, especially the spoof one.
Okay, so
the DP
so
spoof.
that's cool. What do you? So the other thing we always like to know is what are you working on?
Well,
What do you got in the hopper? And you can use code words. That's fine.
I did just work on the one that had the wrestling ring, which I didn't say what
Sure.
it was for, and I'm not going to because it's not on air yet.
Sure.
But it's probably pretty close. But we also got to build a time portal,
What?
like a Stargate time
Yes!
portal, and Duke helped with that one too, and that was
Awesome.
really fun.
portal.
Yeah,
Cool. So there's a lot of
light
lights. Is
size.
there lights involved and
There
stuff?
are lights involved, and
Yes.
there's a lot of post work involved. So I haven't seen
That's
what happens
amazing.
because it was green screen.
That's
but
awesome.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
fun.
That's
For
cool.
on our side of the world, it was a lot of fun. And
Was
it was
that
a
cool.
challenge.
In a studio or outside?
It was in
or-
a studio.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Midwest.
nice. Yeah.
Our friends,
Our buddies at Midwest.
our buddies.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they haven't been on the show yet. We
They
got to get
need
them on
to-
the show.
yeah,
oh,
we gotta get them on.
gosh.
We gotta
all
get
of
them on the
them
show.
and
Yeah.
bourbon. Oh, look
They
out!
will have so many stories from back in the day
Legends.
because they
They
came from
do have legends. They
Yeah.
have legendary stories.
they came
Yeah.
from actual in working departments,
Absolutely.
and then started the company, and then
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, Quincy worked on a river runs through it and tons of
Yeah.
other things. I mean, what a
Yeah.
beautiful film.
Yep.
I mean, they all have great stories. So
We
can't
I
wait.
encourage you to have all.
Well, next
of
time
them.
you see him, make sure to nudge him and be like,
I
"Hey,
will.
hey, get on
Yeah.
there."
Cool.
Yeah.
Could you
So-
fit that many chairs in here?
We'll try.
We'll get like 2 or 3
Yeah,
of
we'll
them.
get them in here.
All right.
So, what are you excited about right now? Is there anything on the horizon? Any new sort of things you're trying? You're wanting to test out? What's the thing that you're excited about?
Well, I am excited that I actually have some time off, which is also a beautiful. It's always a beautiful thing when you're a freelancer, and I'm embracing and loving it. Like to sleep in. I just because I've met this bird lady, I kind of have this idea about doing a story on these. I don't want to say who they are because I don't want anybody to.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't talked to them about it, but they are wildlife saving women. Like, they save wild birds, and they're characters. I can already tell that they're
great.
characters, and I don't know what role the art department would have, but I feel like they have a story that needs to be
So
told.
would it be documentary? Or,
Yeah, it could be documentary or a
scripted?
short story kind
yeah.
of thing. I'm
in.
interested. I'm interested in
I'm in.
doing
So
things.
if you need
okay.
Anything.
Okay.
partnership, call me.
I
love
have,
it already.
All right. I've talked to
Yeah.
one person and I said, I need you to sort of think about it and
Yeah.
pass on it if you don't want it because I need to move
Yeah,
on because
this
it's
sounds great.
yeah. They're two they're like registered with states.
You had me at Bird Lady.
I know.
Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah, that's where I'm
That's
at.
great.
We're in a new house, and so I'm kind of loving just chilling there. And
That's cool.
yeah. Oh,
awesome.
I forgot to say too, I do love Downton Abbey, and I'm really sad it's the final season.
My
That was
wife is
beautifully
so into
shot.
that.
It's
Beautifully shot.
It's got robes, right? I don't know
No,
if I
it's
can get
got what?
It's old school.
I don't like
okay, so
robes.
this
I
is
can't
a,
do
re-
robes.
a
What do you
recurring
mean
thing.
robes?
Like,
What does
He
that
doesn't.
mean?
He can't do
Lord
like
of the Rings.
Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, anything.
It's not Lord of the Rings. It's
Old.
it's a period film in London.
Yeah.
In
Do they wear long coats?
Jesus.
They don't. It's the
Kinda like
19.
robes.
It's like the 1912
It's like
to
suits and, like,
1930 or something.
Ball gowns.
All right, I'll try
Gorgeous.
it. I'll try
Wow.
it.
It's gorgeous.
I'll
it's,
try it.
It's the back of the
Ridiculous.
house and the front of the house, and the way they shoot each one is both different. Which
Yeah.
I
No, I've seen. My
imagine you
wife
don't
watches
love
it.
it.
My
Yeah.
wife. I love the way it looks. I just
Yeah.
can't really.
I know it's soap
story-wise get
opera.
into it.
It's a bit
Sure.
soap opera.
Yeah, but they
it's
kind of
beautiful.
desaturate and all the. It's
Yeah.
kind of muted for the back of the house, and then
But the
up
way they
front is
move, they're all
golden. And boom, yeah.
They're. I think they're maybe handheld or
Yeah.
steady cam for back of the house. I'm not positive.
Stylistically, it's
Fun.
all
Yeah.
very, very cool.
Oh, it's beautiful.
That's actually something I do want to bring up really quick. Going back to the Armstrong spot is another way. So the art direction really helps sell the transition between previous and in the new one on the
Right.
Armstrong spots.
Oh,
But then
yeah.
also something that happened in the post-production process was the color. It started out a
yeah.
little desaturated and a little muddy and gross, and then we bumped it up
Right.
via our buddy William.
William.
Mm-hmm.
Where's he at again?
He's in New Hampshire, man.
New Hampshire.
He's just I've never met William.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of. We've talked quite a bit, but
On Facebook.
he lives in somewhere. I picture him somewhere remote in the mountains of New Hampshire in a log
Yeah.
cabin
Yeah.
with DaVinci Resolve.
Wow.
Just that's what I picture.
Toiling.
That's what I want it to be.
So you might not want to really know.
I don't ever want to know.
Right.
But no, William
Yeah.
reached out to me, through the internets, man, and we've connected, and he does great work. So
Yeah, there you go. But that's something else to take into consideration. And one of the biggest things when I'm talking with the art department on a set is color.
Definitely.
Like color.
huge.
What does this need to feel like? So,
Right.
color's a huge
Because
measure.
sometimes you want a lot and sometimes you don't.
Yeah. Color theory. I feel like if
True
one
story.
thing art should help with is color theory. Like what
Yeah.
colors go together, don't go together, what's going to contrast.
Right.
So
What
it's a
can
cool
look
part.
like a hot mess,
Yeah.
which
You
could
might
be a
want
good
it.
thing.
Yeah.
Right. Might be a good
You
thing.
might want purple next to green or, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of neat. Are you excited about anything else?
Oh, let's see. What else am I excited about? Work-wise?
Yeah. Well, or life or just about the city maybe?
Oh, the city. I think,
Yeah.
in our city right now, although our budgets are not where they used to be, I'm so happy that the movies have returned. When I worked at the Film Commission, it was at the tail end of Rage in Harlem, Public Eye, Milk Money, Little Man Tate. All that had just finished up. And then we had our cold spell. We had traffic.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
I feel like our city right now, while I would love to have a lot more video projects,
Right.
we do have the movies. I do some print stuff as well to help sort of even everything
I
out.
think that's where you and I met, actually.
Oh yeah, because you were doing a video for Grandin Road,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
is. That's
So
true.
that's where we met
Right.
years ago,
Yeah.
4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah. So, you have to wear a lot of hats and you have to hustle in this business. But
By the way, that I have a question. Is that like worlds away from the video side, or is that any different, the print side versus video on the art department?
the print world is a lot different than video. It's not quite as much volume as, like, when you're shooting a picture, you have a very end and beginning frame and it's smaller. When it's video, you could pan from one corner of the room to the next, which is just
Yeah,
way
I
more
can see
than you
that.
ever see. And there's a lot of movement and there's a lot more to look for. But the other thing in video, it's a little more forgiving because you are moving.
Yeah.
And still, it's permanent.
The viewer sits there and picks apart each different part
They have
of
the
frame.
opportunity to pick it apart.
Well-
but with the beauty of Photoshop, you don't have any mistakes anymore.
No.
So, I came from when I did print when you were working from a Polaroid and we were using film. We didn't have digital. Now that it's digital,
Well,
it's a completely
think about
different
this,
world.
though. Think about this. Have you been asked yet to do art direction for a VR shoot where it's 3D, the whole deal?
No, I haven't.
Because I was just
That would
today,
be fun.
today, Drew Greenwell, who's the lead in tech development at Leap Agency, who's our parent company for Leap Frame, he was in the office today and had one of the Oculus with the Samsung.
Oh,
and he had
Samsung VR.
Yeah, and he
Or
had a
gear.
demo.
Samsung
He had a
gear.
demo that was actually pretty rad because I'm a skeptic on VR. I've done some. It makes me sick, and it's kind of a gimmick. I did one today that was pretty rad where I was literally, it was a GoPro one, and I looked to my right and I was looking at the surfer, and I looked to my left and I was in a barrel.
Wow.
And it was rad. I felt like I was in it. And the other
Talking about
one,
a wave.
Yes, the other one I looked at, you would appreciate. It was like a teaser, a VR experience teaser for Deadpool.
Yeah.
And I'm standing in the middle of the room. I've got this VR thing on, and I look left and right. I spun in a 360 circle, and there was stuff happening everywhere, up and down.
Was it in motion or was it a still
No,
frame?
they were like
Frozen
it was
in
the
battle?
Deadpool.
Yeah.
No, the Deadpool character was in a bar, just like being goofy in different scenes, like he
nice.
was multiplied. But if you were the art director on that scene, like it was no longer about where's the frame.
Yeah.
It's
Everything.
hit the room.
Right.
Because literally everything in the room was the frame. So
Right.
that will be a whole new world
I'm so excited
as it
to
goes there.
Yeah.
get into
I
that.
will say, though, and we'll say this for another episode, I'm going to go ahead and make a proclamation right now. VR is still a gimmick. That's
I think that's going places. I think it's going to be a big deal.
what I do. I say
honestly.
things that are
You do.
incendiary. It's a gimmick. It was fun. It was a gimmick.
And what I do is I say, Brandon, you're an idiot.
Yeah,
And I
But-
say, no, it's
Yeah.
going to be a big deal.
true.
I
But
can't wait to see who wins.
I know. Well,
Yeah.
it's not a battle. We love each other.
I typically
He
win.
always wins.
Yeah.
Not really. So anyway.
I feel like in the art department, we dress a world and we
do.
see a corner.
You do.
You know, we always dress more than what we're going to see in
Sure.
video because they're like, oh, I don't know, we might see over here.
Yeah.
And, they want to cover their ass, and I get that. That's,
Yep. Yeah.
that's, and we have to do that. We have to be prepared.
Absolutely.
So we always have a few things in our back pocket.
And you know what? That's exactly what we do here on the show is we try to bring a broad spectrum of content. We've talked about filmmaking in the Philippines, which actually hit the headlines of filmmaking magazines at one of the festivals. There was some big Philippine
There was
filmmakers.
a Philippine director who did an 8-hour film
8-hour
about
film,
the
and
history of
you know, a
Philippines.
couple weeks prior, we were talking about Philippine filmmakers. So
Yeah.
we're bringing you great content, great people,
But what we do
great talent.
is this world already exists. We don't have to create it. And we just each week focus on
It's
a
been
different
amazing.
corner,
yeah.
like Laura
Yeah.
said.
Yeah. And there are a lot of great people in this city.
Yeah,
there really
a lot of good people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
we're
love
lucky.
I love the people I work with.
Well, and we're super excited. We really appreciate you coming on. We're going to have you back
We
because
have
you've
to.
got way more stories to share. We got a lot more to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
More bourbon to drink.
There's
Absolutely.
more bourbon's got to
Yeah.
drink.
We got to get some recommendations from you. Do you? By the way, let's end on this if we can. Are you a big bourbon aficionado?
I'm not an officiant. I'm not, but
But you drink it every once in a while?
Sure.
Do you have a favorite?
I've always loved Basil Hayden. It's super smooth.
Oh, there you go.
And I've heard though it doesn't have like as much alcohol content, but I
Yeah.
don't think it's like that much lower.
No.
Right.
But it's very tasty.
Good call. That's a good one.
Yeah. Have you had it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good.
it's
Love
just
We've had a
good.
lot
You know,
of
it's
bourbon.
just good.
Yeah.
Nice.
I like it.
Awesome.
Very cool.
It's great. Well,
Yeah.
get yourself a Basil Hayden.
Yeah.
Tune in after this episode. Go back and listen to past episodes.
Learn about different positions.
Yeah, it's
and
a
all
lot of
that.
fun.
Yeah.
And moving forward, we're moving into March.
We are.
And we've
It's only
got
1 month away
I
from
know.
our NAB special month.
I know. We're going to NAB, and we're going to be bringing you exclusive content. In addition to that, right now in March, we're going to bring you content. We've got a DP from New York City who's going to be on.
Angus.
We also have some other guys, right?
We
think
do.
I'm working on a couple other people
Yeah,
in
I've
New York
got
too.
some leads, so nothing's really locked down yet. But that's kind of the nature of the show. We just kind of go
Yep.
with the flow. So
So we're going to be bringing you content from different places. I got another guy out in San Francisco that could be interesting. So we'll see what we can line up.
yeah.
But it's been what a great month in
By
February.
the way, if there's anything specifically that you want to hear, we do have a website. and it's fdbpodcast.com.
Yep.
And there's a link on the top right that says Ask Us Anything.
Yeah, we'd love to hear
So
from you.
there you can drop us a line and say, hey, I really want to know about whatever department or whatever type
Absolutely.
of shoot or whatever. So just drop us a line, let us know.
Or shout out and follow us on Twitter at FDB Podcast and on Instagram at FDB Podcast.
Yeah, we're active everywhere.
What about you? Can people get in touch with you?
Yeah.
How do they do it?
Only by a phone number.
Okay, so here's the
I don't
deal.
have a website. I
That's
don't
all
have
right.
a card.
This is but you travel, right?
I do.
Okay, so here's the deal. If you've listened today and you're like, you know what, I really like her vibe, and you're like, and we're gonna post the Armstrong spots, but maybe you can send me some links of some other work you've done.
Sure.
Okay, and we'll post that on our blog at fdbpodcast.com. And if you're like, you know what, I really dig her vibe, reach out to us on fdbpodcast.com, ask us anything, and say, hey, I really want to get a hold of Laura, and we'll connect the dots for you.
We will. I
Thank
feel
you,
like
guys.
this is like that the sales TV shows.
We're
where
like
they're
a dating service.
No, where they're like selling a necklace.
Yeah,
and they're
we're
like,
connecting.
If you like what you saw here today,
Yeah.
for only 5 easy payments.
Yes.
$5.99.
If you're a director out there and you really want your vision to come to life, Laura's available. Contact us at ftbpodcast.com.
Good Lord, you should do
It
that.
feels
for-
a little dirty. We're like
It does.
pimping
It
right
does.
now.
I
pimping
know.
you out.
We're art pimping.
Yeah, we need to get you in contact with everybody.
Oh, well. Well, hey, it's been a lot of
It has.
fun.
It has.
One heck of a show. Been a great
Thanks,
month with
guys.
some great people.
I
Cheers.
enjoyed it.
Cheers.
Thanks so much. And
See you next week.
later. This podcast was recorded live at Sound Images Studio. Find out more at soundimages.com.